One nightmare at a time, sir.
Oh man. Well, if you're living any better, it'd be somebody else's dream, right?
There you go.
There you go. Well, just a quick update. I'm sure you guys know that the session did actually, in fact, end on Saturday evening. I'm still putting together what I would hope would be a kind of a inclusive year-end report or session-end report. What I can give you a couple of little tidbits here, interesting inside facts, not necessarily specific bills that did or didn't pass. They got the budgets done. It was a nightmare. They didn't pass the drug possession legislation, so a lot of the West Side cities are trying to pass their own, make it legal. On the other side of things, and this is really interesting coming into next year, especially in the House, they are reorganizing their leadership structures pretty much through and through in the Republican and Democratic caucuses. It sounds like the Republican floor leader will probably stay the same, and the Democratic, Speaker of the House will probably remain. Outside of that, long-standing positions are people are stepping down, new people are moving up. They're kind of electing new individuals. I don't know the full landscape of what it's going to look like, but the legislature, especially in the House next year, with respect to leadership and how things are run, will be significantly different on both sides of the aisle. I don't really know what that's gonna lead to. I don't know, what kind of governance. I don't know what kind of access. I can tell you the uprising in the majority party was significantly more eventful than it was in the Republican Party. The Republicans just kind of did theirs, hey, this is what we're doing. I'm tired of doing this. Here's our two possible candidates for each position, whatever, vote on it. Sounds like the Democrat side had a heck of a fight internally on, some people were happy, some were unhappy. And it was, I don't know the details yet, but I'll see what I can do to find out. But it's definitely looking interesting for the next year with respect to next year's elections. Kind of sounds like predictions thus far are looking at there's a possibility of one seat is the kind of prediction I'm forecasting. One seat in the House may flip from D to R, and in the Senate, they're pretty sure. It sounds like at this point, I know we're a long ways out, but it sounds like it's probably just going to stay the same. Outside of that, there is some call within the legislature and outside of to kind of streamline some of the processes, make things a little bit more clear. If you were at, it was like 3 steering committees ago, or watched that or got a report on that steering committee, it sounds like quite a few of the West Side members in the Democratic Party would prefer to remain on Zoom meetings, unless, barring any new major pandemic next year. It kind of sounds like, the restrictions, whether it be, masks and doors locked and all that stuff, is probably going to be a lot less next year. So we're hoping our access is going to be a lot better. That said, it looks like, we're still on the pathway to very likely have a lot of new legislative aids. So could be an interesting year this next year. The budgets were kind of a nightmare. We're still wading through exactly what happened. And they came to their consensus and what fell off and what got funded. I know there was a pretty big chunk in the transportation budget for Central Washington Rail. That's positive, negative, doesn't really affect you guys a whole lot up there, I don't think, but it was a big transportation project. With respect to the firearms legislation, 1240, I know there's been a lot going around on that. That's the one that bans a whole bunch of specific firearms, assault weapons, whatever they want to call them. I think that one should be on the governor's governor's desk today or tomorrow, but they've already got the court case ready to file as soon as he signs it. So I don't know exactly what the process is on that, but it is definitely going to the courts. And there's pretty much almost 100% probability that it's not going to make a law as intended. So I don't know what that'll look like. They might have them go back. They might just say this is unconstitutional. They might scope it. Who knows? So that's kind of the report on those. They had a lot of mix-ups with the ADU bills. They moved language around back and forth, tried to hang language on all kinds of different bills at the end, most of which failed. So that was kind of their sneaky little manipulation at the end. Was there anything specific that you guys saw that you had questions on that I might be able to answer?
No, the biggest shocker to me, well, kind of shocker, originally it was a shocker, is they didn't fix the Blake problem, which means they're going to pass it on to us. But then part of me thought, well, that's probably the reason why they didn't fix the Blake decision. So we'll figure that one out as we go.
And the interesting thing, about that one is, turns out the negotiations on the Blake decision stuff were done about 4 weeks ago.
Oh, and they just didn't tell anybody until
they just let everybody kind of think that.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. The negotiations were done. But the other thing was, I mean, right down to the last moment in both parties, there were I call them underling legislators, so not in leadership in any way, shape, or form, trying to go around and cut deals to try and get things done 100% fruitlessly. I mean, they never had a chance, not even a prayer that they were going to get done. So while the deal was done, a month ago, it sounds like there were people that thought maybe there's a chance. So that's kind of I think what happened there. I don't know that there was a absolute misdirection, but still, I think that was what happened. And then on a lot of the stuff, I actually saw some really interesting things on taxes this year. The legislature approached a lot of the taxing situations, the tax questions, from a standpoint of, is this a county issue or is this a state issue? And I think that the financial position of the state is really playing into that right now, where they don't have any money and they're trying to figure out how to do it. This is the first time I've actually seen them actively, without being prompted, coming out and going, okay, whose responsibility is this particular item? And it may be a light at the end of the tunnel, but that could always turn into the train coming to run you over too. So we'll see how it goes next year in those conversations. They'll probably forget. If there's anything that we've learned about legislators, is they have a very short memory. So we'll see, and kind of how that goes, over the interim. I know there's going to be a lot of conversations over the interim, because a lot of the legislators were very unhappy with how this went. And what is it? May 10th, I think we'll be meeting in May 10th to the 12th. We'll be in Moses Lake. Is that right?
Good question. Don't know.
April. Hold on. I'm gonna look. May. Yeah, Wasatch Board of Directors meeting, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I'll be in Moses Lake. I don't know if any of you guys are going to attend that, but I'm sure there'll be some really good conversation there, strategy wise, and see kind of what might be coming out down the road for the next year. But I'll be there either way. So if you guys have any questions and you're not there, I'll be able to answer them.
Perfect. Do my seatmates have any questions?
Are you thinking, Zach, that the governor will bring him back to deal with the Blake decision, or what is your sense right now?
Trying to predict what that guy's going to do It's like predicting the weather, I guess. I have no idea. There's not a lot of sentiment right now um, to bring them back because the state doesn't have any money. If he was going to bring them back, they'd have to find some money to figure this out. And I think that's kind of why they kicked the can down the road. Like, well, it's a county's responsibility for right now. So if I was a betting man, I'd say probably no, they're not going to come back for it. But at this point, nothing surprises me.
That's kind of where I'm thinking on it too, is, we're always fighting for local control. And I think on this one, they said, hey, here's your local control, but you also get the costs associated with that local control if you want to do it.
Yeah, and there's really no no motivation and zero talk about reworking Blake. It's all about, okay, how do we pay for it, as opposed to, okay, is there some sort of a fix that we can put out here that would actually be a rework? The fix is the financial rework, not an actual policy rework. So that's a problem for us. So, but I would not expect them to come back this year to deal with that, especially since next year is the supplemental budget year for the legislature. I think it's just more of a, here we go. The guys deal with it on the county level, see how you do this year, and then come back next year and tell us what you want us to do. So, and then look for, it'll probably be a day or two. I'll get out the year-end report. I keep track of all the bills that every county asked about and wanted information on. So I will include all of those that made it through the legislature and some of the other sentiments that we learn here talking to legislatures over the next 3 or 4 days. So, and then if you guys have any questions, as always, call or email anytime. And hopefully we'll see you at a couple of these meetings over the summer.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Any questions from my seatmates before we go?
Nope, it's just kind of sad that a $69.2 billion operating budget and they don't have any money.
It's all green energy and homeless housing, but thank you, sir.
good.
That's all we have for you.
All right. Thank you guys very much. It's always a pleasure. Have a good have a good morning. Jesus, not
Yes,
afternoon.
sir. We'll try to have it.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I think they just don't. The legislature just doesn't want to have to pay for it. And I think their political aspirations have been decriminalizing drugs. And so now everything is decriminalized unless you're selling it. Distributing still illegal, but if you're in possession of, meth or heroin or bath salts or anything else, you're good to go. Just have a nice day. Don't jaywalk, by all means. So I would imagine some counties through the process are going to start setting up their own laws. But with that, I'm sure there will be
I mean, hard to imagine if,
legal consequences.
yeah, you go from one county to the next and you got different drug rules.
Mm-hmm. But I would imagine some will. And the first ones out of the gate will be testing the waters legally. And on the hook liability wise.
But you can't make it we couldn't make it a felony though, right?
No,
Yeah, it
we
can
don't
only
have
be
that
a
authority.
misdemeanor.
It
Yeah,
would still only be a misdemeanor. But again, you would be prosecuting all your own cases. You would be paying for defense costs. You would be paying for jail time. You'd be paying if the judge didn't order him to jail and they ordered him for the diversion. You'd have to have contracts set up with that. Probation, everything. Nothing would be state funded anymore.
Everything was us paying for it before, wasn't it?
Diversion counseling, which is what they're trying to do with all of them now versus put them in jail. That was all outside source. They weren't getting diversion counseling through the county.
I don't know. I don't think the state ever paid for it, did they?
I think the state pays
Unless you had
the
Medicaid.
organization
Oh, that doesn't.
that is doing the counseling.
Well, are you glad to be done with session?
Yes and no. I think it was more frustrating than anything else, but I must have missed the email of because I knew they would do an end of Wasac recap. And then they'd have another one in the fall to go over planning for next year, but I didn't get the email for the 10th, 11th, or 12th, either that or I missed it somewhere, so I'm gonna have to go back to digging for that. Yeah, yeehaw. Mr. Jeff, do you have something for us? You were on our agenda and because of dumpster fires, we had to move you, but we have a few minutes if you need us.
Here to listen to the finance committee update in case there's any update on the merger of the two funds, as well as public works for Save Us Fast project update.
Right. I was kind of curious if we were gonna see Greg today because, okay, because they ended up canceling the finance committee meeting, so.
I don't get notifications, so I didn't know.
I was gonna say, so he might not have plans of even being here, which is why we got 15 minutes to get some of our busy schedule today done, so that's why I said, if you had a 5-minute or something for us, you could throw us 5 minutes.
Certainly your pleasure, whatever you want me to do.
Yeah, we're essentially short time, so if you've got if you want to give us an update on your, anything or your search and rescue operation or anything like that, why it's time sensitive, bring it on. We just didn't have the half hour. We originally took you from an hour to a half an hour, and then even that we stole from you because we got some issues we have to deal with that are time sensitive.
Understood. So I will try not to then take up too much time. I do have a couple of add-ons since I submitted this on Thursday, as usual, but see how fast I can get through this. The
Hit the
system.
high points.
Yep, radio systems operating normally at this time. We do have some very sporadic issues with county ops and the road channels being looked into to determine the best way to troubleshoot that. Very preliminary stages. Skipping down stuff you already know. Did get a call back from Astound. However, my cell phone didn't tell me I had a message from them for at least 2 weeks. So I need to touch base with Astound again, which manages the Diamond Gap site for the possible co-location of cellular. So I'll be calling them later today to see what their thoughts are on that. Senior Services has once again approached me, Director Sharon Carter, about their radio system for mail items transportation. And we'll get into more of that later. I'll be working with Sharon on her comms needs to support her as much as I can, which may include a conversation with Public Works to have non-items transportation use the road channel and save the county some money long-term versus paying increased cost, monthly cost for radio service through Day Wireless, as well as upgrading all the radios. Site leases, you can read that. Just got the PA opinion approval back for Juniper Point sublease with the DNR. So I'm gonna be putting that on your agenda probably for next week. The other highlights, 911 staffing. We have 1 full-time position open and 2 casuals now. One of our casuals left for a full-time job as a deputy in Oregon. 1 communications officer in training. She's at the end of her 3rd month and doing well so far. You can read the other things under operations and training. One highlight is that we are participating in the state 911 dispatch training standardization and certification committee. Lead communications officer Walter is one of 7 people on that state committee. I wanted to make sure we had insight into that and a voice into that. If we can get a standardized training for comms officers across the state, And even like Oregon has a basic training academy where they send their comms officers to 4 weeks of training at the state level. We want to make sure have a voice in that, don't get left out, because the previous CJTC training for comms officers was not sufficient and not very well, just like law enforcement is struggling with. They get their people back from CJTC and they have to retrain them, basically. So the state 911 office did away with comms officer CJTC training a couple of years ago, and now they're trying to rebuild something for themselves. Completing all of the continuing education certs and so on, updating the medical dispatch program and training to it, working with IT to get trained on the back end, as well as our comms officers to the new software updates. Text to 911 should be completed by the end of June of this year. New capability for our center. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and that celebration went very well. I'd speak more if I had more time, but it was successful in my opinion. Commissioner Anderson was there. You can add to that if you'd like. Focusing on completing all of the requirements and spending the final money in the state 911 grant, which expires the end of June. We held a law enforcement only radio system and dispatch users group meeting, not yesterday, but last Monday. I presented, and it went very well. I presented the cross-discipline training task force concept to all those law enforcement heads, as I had done to fire and EMS heads 2 weeks prior. All the law enforcement heads agreed that that was a good thing, and they wanted to participate. They would commit their personnel to participate in that training task force. If you want more information on exactly what that is, I can elaborate. Fund 107, 135 merger. At this point, I'm waiting on the treasurer's office to figure out all the nuts and bolts of that. So that is in the process at their office. Emergency management program, the outdoor burn ban. Received the PA's opinion request, approved as to form. It's on your consent agenda today for the public hearing to be scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th at 1:30. Public education campaign materials already created in the can, ready to send out as soon as we have your approval for that code amendment. And there has since been a stakeholders meeting for prescribed burning on private property in the county, in the Glenwood area, coming up next month, I think, towards the end of the month, which I'm going to participate in. I believe that that's going to be, one of the things that everybody's going to want us to deal with next, because prescribed burning is now in the industry known as the best way to mitigate wildfires and so on. And how we're going to be able to accommodate that, I don't know. But there are things that work at the state level with DNR and working with private landowners to do prescribed burns, just like the DNR does, and Forest Service. But that's a bigger conversation. I just want to make sure we're not left out of that. So I don't know if any of you got that invitation. I couldn't tell by the email that was sent, but I'm planning to attend just to make sure we're not left out of that discussion. I'd like to see it happen, but how is the question? Training and exercises. We've started the new orientation for DEM volunteers to work in the EOC and the mobile command post and all those things. When we activate the EOC or are requested from other agencies to supply support with mobile command post, Starlink, all those things, communications, and so on. Had several new people there at that orientation last Saturday, which is very good. And 3 of those members are also expressing interest to join the All Hazards SUAS team, the drone team. Yep. And let's see, the grants, you can see all those normal statuses as When we get to the 23 SHUSH, which is the new State Homeland Security Program grant, update just since yesterday, the National Priority Area projects, which are competitive statewide, we secured 3 of those projects for our county for a total of $300,000 total. Excuse me, I didn't say that right. Roughly $106,000, plus the enduring needs side, which was approximately $29,000 or something. Just the sustainment part of that grant. Community outreach, you can read those things, pretty standard stuff, community councils and presentations. Also, Chief of Ops, Filiberto Ontiveros went yesterday and gave 911 public education to a troop of Girl Scouts. That was very well received with that presentation that they have, Cell Phone Sally and all that. He was very happy with the way it went. He got, what do you say? 10 or 12 8-year-olds, 7 and 8-year-olds to pay attention for 15 minutes.
That's a chore.
He was happy with that, yes. And that was in cooperation with Bingen White Salmon PD officer was there as well, and some other folks doing that public safety presentation. As I think I've talked to you briefly, you can read in detail on my notes, there was the all hazards UAS team first deployment back on April 1st, highly successful, actually found a missing person with the UAV itself, and provided support to the sheriff's search and rescue and law enforcement teams when they approached that person. Let's see, KCSO also requested the UAS team for a search and rescue mission on last Sunday, 4/23. They were disregarded before they arrived, however. Continuing training, the one thing I want to hit before I run out of time is at the Telecommunicators Week presentations, we presented Communications Officer Hannah Walter with Employee of the Year for our department. That was as fast as I could make it. Any questions?
That was fast and you got it there. A quick question. I know we installed some cell phone boosters and I think some of the sheriff's vehicles. Do you have any idea how those are working out? Are they actually working in areas of Glenwood and whatnot, or?
So the original WeBoosts, or are you talking about the FirstNet?
Remembering some things that we were trying to give them more cell phone coverage in random areas, but I never heard a follow-up on whether it worked or not.
So they've had WeBoosts, cell signal boosters in their vehicles for a couple of years now, most of them anyway. They might have had to upgrade some of the new vehicles. They might not have all had it. The newest thing that I was brought in, I had a meeting, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago with the sheriff's office and the AT&T FirstNet local reps, and talking about switching over to FirstNet for cellular service from what the sheriff uses now as a combination of US Cellular and Verizon for their data terminals. And we were going to get some equipment on loan to put in the vehicles and see how that worked. That may be what you are referring to, but I'm not aware that that's been received and installed.
Yeah, I must be thinking of the old thing.
Yeah, the WeBoost works great. I've had it in the DM vehicle for years, ever since the 2015 wildfire in Cougar Creek out in Glenwood, and I saw the state folks using them in their vehicle. I was like, how can you talk in the Glenwood school parking lot on your cell phone?
What does that cost?
I think the device itself is like $150 or something. It was phenomenal, and it's great. I've
A
talked.
monthly fee is just you buy the device,
Right.
hook it up, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the tests that I did when I first got it was go from Highway 14 up 142 through Klickitat to Goldendale, and talked on my cell phone with US Cellular service. Dropped the call twice, and that's all. And mile marker 18, there's nothing there. Even our radio system doesn't work well at mile marker 18. It's just the whole slot canyon. So I was very impressed, and that's why I bought one for my personal vehicle.
Okay, I'm gonna leave these guys to have any questions for you, and I'm gonna fill my water and then we'll move on.
I don't have any questions.
That was good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think fastest you've ever gotten through it.
Yep. Like I said, you guys can read in between and call or email me anytime
Thank you for always providing it to us ahead of time as well.
You're welcome.
Good morning. You're always so good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, 10:01, we're close. We'll start, have a Public Works Director Jeff Hunter and Intern County Engineer Seth Scarola with an update on the Public Works Department. But first, before me, I have a certificate of good practice has been transmitted to the state treasurer on behalf of Klickitat County for 2022. So I guess I will give that to you, sir, for good practice in 2022.
Yes. Without that, we wouldn't be eligible for grants. Seth did all the hard work.
There we go.
Thank you, sir. Perfect. Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, we have a few things on your consent agenda this week. First is our notice to contractors to advertise for the jail re-roofing, with the bid opening scheduled for May 16th. Second is the final project acceptance for the building we're sitting in. And release of retainage. The retainage is right around 785,000 or something like that. This building is complete. We do have a workshop scheduled for May 18th to discuss the HVAC and some sidewalks. And that will finally put this project to bed. Advertisement for the Dallasport rate study increase and that's for the hearings that we talked about last week. And that's all for the consent agenda. At this time, we'll turn it over to Seth to talk about the construction program and the design program.
On construction, Courtney Road, we're awaiting a paving schedule. Construction group is meeting with the contractor this morning, in fact, so hopefully we get some good news soon. Fairgrounds, water line, everything has been completed, including the service connections. The annual striping project, they had a pre-construction meeting yesterday and striping started this morning. On the design end of things, Rock Creek Bridge is out to add. Bids will be open on the 9th of May. Already have 2 contractors signed up for it already. Plans and specs for white plastic edge line and the slope flattening guardrail safety projects are still awaiting approval to go to add. We do have funding in place, but waiting to go to add on those. Construction funding approval for the curve warning signs and guideposts is now at WashDOT, awaiting their permission for the funding approval and permission to go to add. We received approval from WashDOT to advertise a request for proposals for consultants for our data collection project. So we will be on ad next week for that. Design work continues on Sundale and Old Highway 8. We're calculating right-of-way and stormwater needs, and the archaeological report was submitted to DAP for their approval. The Bickleton area paving project, that has also been submitted to WashDOT and in review. And we're continuing ongoing projects, some of the maintenance projects, including the Bickleton widening and snowplow turnaround.
Okay, on the maintenance side, east side is grading, crack sealing Centerville Highway, anticipation of chip sealing next year. We're doing some spot graveling and finishing up the brooming of the sand. West End is grading, placing gravel on Dorsey, Acme, Stats, and Bill Moore roads, and burning brush in the Trout Lake quarry. We haul our brush piles, stuff we clean up, to the quarries to burn them at this time. Upcoming facilities and events. Courthouse HVAC is scheduled for May 8th. The the replacement, and May 12th, we will be reaching out to the 3 departments that will be affected. Because what they ultimately do, they bring in the crane, they take they disconnect all 3 units, and those units are backed by the judge, the assessor, and the clerk. So we'll be we've already been in touch, and Rick will go over and talk to the elected officials and let them know that during those periods of time, they will, will provide, if need be, portable units, but there won't be any HVAC system, because ultimately contractor comes, they disconnect the units. It won't be the whole time, but they'll come in, disconnect all 3, and then they bring in a crane, pull the 3 off, put the 3 new on, and then they hook them all up. And then it's timing them and everything else. Pioneer Center and the other courthouse unit is now planned for the spring. Jailhouse, or jail roof replacement, we've talked about. We're also there is a mandatory walkthrough scheduled for May 2nd for all the potential bidders. Superior Court, I got word we were included, our project was included in the approved budget for the state budget. So that project is now a go. We still have to do the paperwork with DHAP. Waterline project is complete. Fairgrounds, Home and Garden is May 5th and 6th, and high school prom is May 6th in the livestock barn. A little different, but okay. Okay, juvenile, we're still working ahead on juvenile. ADA restroom in the lower level of the course house will be scheduled to be open this week. It's the first ADA restroom we have in the lower section of the courthouse. And that was taken out of that space that used to be kind of where Alicia would have sat if she was ever there. Fuel Island, we're beginning work on design, and radio towers, we're waiting for weather to get a little bit better and them to get delivery of the tower. Other follow-up issues, again, we have the tour tomorrow at Dallas Port Treatment Plant. Cleanup in Bingen went well. They wanted me to thank you for allowing us to help them out. Thank the board. We would like to hire 1 summer help in the West End and 3 flaggers. Again, we'll go out. We'd like to go out. We do it every year. The odds of us finding 3 flaggers are probably very slim to none. The reason we want to bring the summer help back or have that summer help is we are doing a lot of chip sealing within the towns or the cities of White Salmon and Bingen. And he helps us because he used to be our chip spreader operator, which we can get by without him when we're doing county roads, and we could get by without him here, but he's just there to help, and he can flag too. So if we could get permission to go out, we would like to do that.
Yes.
Okay, that's included in our budget typically is, again, the chances of us actually finding people are probably not very good, but we'll give it a shot. We have a show and tell in Trout Lake, just so everybody's aware. What I mean by that is the school has asked if we would provide equipment for the kids, which I think is great because maybe we'll get some people that will.
Equipment like excavators and bulldozers and stuff?
We're gonna bring a grader and our 6-wheel drive dump truck. The kids would like to see them, and maybe if we can get 1 or 2 to actually go in the trades when they get older, that would probably be good. So we're gonna do that. We'll bring equipment there. And there's a cleanup in Klickitat this weekend. This one we do not do anything for. It's a lot less people than there is in the Bingen one, and they literally just walk the stuff right into. but just giving you the heads up that takes place on the old mill
I
site.
did see a Facebook post from the Klickitat community that they were begging for somebody with an excavator because their normal excavator person couldn't make it.
They didn't reach out to us.
I was just brought that up, curious if my seatmate has heard anything of what's going on down there.
No, I'll check. I did hear that they limited it this year to just bag garbage, so no appliances or.
So that's technically, yeah.
In
was it
future,
by-
they could
I'll
reach
check
out
on
to
their
us.
excavator.
And, you know, if everybody wants to reach out to us, again, we don't have a problem. We'll just have to come up with ways to put something in the budget to account for it. We can absorb the bench and white salmon one because we've been doing it forever, and it's just kind of, but that's usually in the buildings and grounds budget.
Well, and it's bigger too. I mean, I think it's a big one.
Yes,
If Goldendale had wanted to be a big one, these little communities aren't necessarily as big. I know, yeah, we'll leave it at that.
yeah, it's paying the guys to sit around all day with not a lot to do. They stay pretty busy when they're doing the white salmon benching one. Couple other things I do not have on the list, just because I walked in and heard it. We also have a cell phone booster that we purchased a while ago. One of our inspectors uses it, does work very well. The funny thing is we actually used them last year for home and garden because we couldn't get Wi-Fi to work. And so with the cell phone booster, they could do receipts, and we had two of them. We put one on each end of the Joan Fry Arena where the home and garden show is. Therefore, they could get signal inside, because without that, you get nothing. It's just a big tin can, basically. So that we used them last year for that. We actually have three. I think we have three of them. I'm not sure. I know
Are
we
you
have
using them
two.
this year for that?
No, we have Wi-Fi.
I heard let's say I heard a rumor that Joan Fry Arena is fairly maxed out on its power capacity for home and garden show and has caused issues in the past. Is that something that's ever been brought to your attention?
We met with them yesterday, and they had said that, and I remember the flood in the Joan Fry Arena in 2009. And I've been here since the start of it. I didn't remember a lot of that because they used to run a spider. The first year they didn't run a spider, and that was a problem. And we told them we'll work with them. If, you know, you plug 3 people pulling 50 amps into a 20 amp circuit, you're going to blow the circuit. So there is power capacity, but they have to work with us to make sure they put the vendors that need the power where the power is. And that's kind of a common theme. We've increased power in a lot of different areas throughout the years at the fairgrounds. And that's kind of a common theme. Somebody brings in 9 times out of 10 when we investigate, it's either their mechanism that has a short, or they're trying to plug in 220 into a 110 receptacle. It won't fit, but I think I can modify it
Fit it
for
with
you,
a hand.
know? And the only other thing I got on here is, you know, I'll work with Jeff also on this. Sharon reached out to me about her radio. And I talked to our guys. It wouldn't be a problem for them to join our network. Again, I gotta work with Jeff. I don't know what the cost is. He's still sitting back there. Because if there is if we pay a cost, we'd have to figure out what their percentage is, and then they would pay a cost. But I told Sharon, I don't know without talking with Jeff. But we'll work with Sharon to get her squared away. And that's all I have, unless we got something.
Question or anything? No? Thank you, gentlemen. Good job. Keep up the good work. Thank you for the teamwork you're providing with other departments. It's not unnoticed. All right, 10:15, we have an add-on regarding comprehensive health care, and Public Health Director Aaron Quinn will be giving us an emergency update.
an update. I'm not doing emergencies this year. We did that last year.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to go on the record. I sent you all an email on Friday and hopefully you were able to see that and actually have hopefully Chris is online too. We were notified on Friday that Comprehensive isn't going to provide services in the county any longer. Thank you.
Did they give us a cutoff date?
Thank you. The letter just addressed that they would be transitioning their services out, that they may still potentially provide some telehealth and that they would work on referring the current clients that they have to community partners. So I think they referenced us. So I think it's important to state again that currently we're only providing crisis services, that we don't have an outpatient service to refer anyone to. We had talked a lot about how we would build this program out. I think we've looked at a timeline that would definitely be fall or later. So this timing was a little bit of a surprise. I don't think that really anyone was surprised that they made the choice that they did. It's more about the timeline. This is going to further the gap that we're seeing in the community around medication services. So people being unable to get their medications filled. And SUD services. I spoke with Courtney briefly yesterday. They have 47 clients that we're seeing getting services from Comprehensive.
Did you talk to Tom?
I have not talked to Tom. I
Because
just,
he called me concerned that he heard a rumor a week ago, so let's keep him in the loop too.
yep, will do. So Chris put together this proposal. What I need kind of your feedback and potentially approval on today is really to pursue funding to fill this gap, which would come under our umbrella. So as once Comprehensive is done with their services in this county, we will be the only behavioral health agency. So there is that. It's services we talked about putting together in the future. And again, my big concern is being able to get these folks keep them on their medications. So looking at being able to have a provider that prescribes in a locum, potentially initially in a locum setting. So we would contract with them. They wouldn't be a full-time employee to fill that gap to ensure that these folks can still have access to services. And then continue just to build collaboration with our community partners. So KVH does have behavioral health services. From what I understand, an appointment with them is quite a few months out, so they wouldn't have the capacity potentially to see the increase in folks that need that support. North Shore has some counseling services. They're working with CHPW in Molina to house a medication provider and an SUD 1 day a week in the White Salmon area. That's been in the works for a couple of months. So that will help fill that gap as well. And at this time, Skyline doesn't have any behavioral health resources. They have positions open, but they don't have anything to support that. So I think in the handout that I shared with you, Chris really referred to this as a public health emergency. And I believe for this county it is. We're seeing the number of people in crisis. We had, I think I left my statistics downstairs, I apologize, but we had 24, I think in February we saw in crisis. 6 of those we admitted to hospitals. We have folks in the jail who cannot get their medications filled, and I'm certain Carmen's probably spoken with you about the implications of people in jail that don't get their medications and the impacts that has on their facility and the staff. Yeah, that's my pitch. I just wondered what you all. It's not a good place for us to be in. It's not a place I would have liked to have seen us get to. I'm not sure what the answers are, but I think not doing anything is wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to bite my tongue on why we're here today,
I will too.
but temporarily. Long term, I'm no promises.
Deal.
But again, I think this is not really asking county funds. This is asking to look at state options, see if Beacon will transfer more money, whatnot. I guess I would say my biggest worry with this is more stress and pressure on you since we can't find a dang director.
Correct.
And there's got to be something we can do with that director, whether it's reach out more, advertise more, lift the pay more, something. We have to get that fixed or we're going to have another emergency problem here shortly, I feel. So I'm a yes on exploring funding options, but I'm also a yes on any thoughts or ideas or anything you have on filling that director role, please bring forward.
Okay. I have some ideas I'm working through. I'm actually gonna meet with HR on Thursday and just see like feasibility before I bring it to you all. I just have some homework to do before I present some options, but I did speak with someone that is potentially interested in being a provider for medication management for 1 day a week, at least temporarily. They could, you know, it'd be a contract. That's something we could get done fairly quickly. Again, kind of what we're running into is infrastructure problems. So having a place for them to see clients, how, you know, it's just a lot of, I think some of our bigger challenges with this plan are more logistics rather than actually being able to provide the services, at least in the short term. So I have a couple things I'm working on, I think that could be very fruitful, but I want to make sure that, again, I have my presentation put together. But because this is important and this, I wanted to update you this week so that you at least had kind of a heads up where we were, what things were being worked on, and making sure that you're okay. If we go to the Medicaid organizations, I mean, they're going to have to start writing checks. This is an expensive service, and we've all been very clear that the county's not going to pay for it, so.
Yes.
Input?
Been in trenches this whole time. And this is the direction I think we have to go, whether we want to or not. We're going kicking and screaming.
I think we knew in some way or the other, comprehensive was leaving. It was just a matter of when and how much notice and how friendly they were going to be, and or lack thereof. Sorry, I had to say it. I'll go back to biting my tongue. So do we have board consensus to allow her to go search for funding then? I
Whatever
heard
you
me, but
need.
I didn't hear anybody else. Okay,
We've kind of already been doing it.
well, I know, but I'm just making it official.
Yeah, whatever you need.
No, this is above and beyond. We had been engaging with the Medicaid organizations to talk about what it would look like to expand our services and what kind of funding they would potentially be able to offer us as we built the program out. The conversations were not about how to do this next week. So, and it's a different thing, and it's going to have to be some upfront funding, not more of a negotiation of enduring services. So those are two very different asks. So just so you're aware, that's two very different things I'm working on. And I don't know if Chris is on the phone, but he may or may not have some feedback as well. He was going to try to join today.
No, that's Steve. He's got a different emergency.
If there's anything we can do for you, Aaron, that encourages someone from the board or whatever you need.
Okay. I'm honestly just going to start asking for money. And when I get that, then I will come back and talk about what we need to look at for staff.
Well, we either ask them for money and they give it, or people start dying. And
That's the bottom line here.
that's essentially
That's
what
where
it
we're
is.
at, and it's frustrating for all of us, but I don't really see, unless someone else has a better plan on how to manage this. What I've asked for today, I think, is what we need to do.
Right. Jeff, you had a hand up? You got to be loud enough.
He's still getting mental health wellness treatment, but as you mentioned, people are gonna start suffering more and dying. Yeah, I know yesterday from the 911 dispatch and emergency management perspective, I mean, this affects everybody in many ways. We dealt with one individual yesterday with mental health issues at least twice. One of those times he was burning a little warming fire out in the grassy area, and if we get into fire season, we have folks that aren't able to get their meds, take their meds, do that stuff. It puts everybody in the community at risk for
Yes, it
wildfires
does.
if they're not being taken care of.
Okay,
All right.
thank you for all that you do.
Yes, I will be back next week with a more robust update and probably some better plans for your review.
We have a few minutes before your 10:15 to talk about another issue.
Sure, come on. Was it a 10:15?
First, I want to comment about looking.
She was our 10:15, so yeah,
5
we got a good
minutes.
5 minutes or
First,
more.
a comment about finding a director is I think Director Quinn's done an amazing job of staffing what she has. We were talking before we came in here with Columbia Center for Living, which provides mental health services on the Oregon side, 3 counties. It's 44 mental health openings, and they have a $5,000 to $7,000 signing bonus. So it's raising the pay. We're gonna find this all across the board. It's just
Yes.
it's an issue of there's just nobody out there, or like a senior planner, they can pick and choose where they want to go. So
That's the kicker. So I think they can pick and choose where they want to go. They can pick and choose whether they want to be full-time or consultant. They can pick and choose whether they have a full-time consultant job with us and a full-time consultant job with somebody else. We are at their mercy right now.
So we're committed to helping Director Quinn, and there is some, issues with the other side of the river, so which is to our advantage over here. But MCMC has, behavioral health, and I think One Community Health, they're starting to get into it. So it's just very competitive field. So, but we'll do what we can to help. So speaking of directors, it may be hard to find. We're here to ask for verbal approval to post the Director of Community Services and a verbal on the org chart that we presented at the workshop, so we can get it posted. What, steps 1 through 3 at grade 76. So
I would say, yeah, post it. Let's get started looking. It might take a while.
I may have missed it. Do I have a copy of I have the org chart, but I don't know if I have a final copy, the job description.
yeah, we sent it out last
Okay,
Thursday,
I'll look
but
in
I'll
my-
get you another one.
I'll find it.
Yeah, that's okay.
It got buried.
No, I can get you another one. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let me take Jeff with us.
Yeah. All right, moving ahead, a couple minutes early, we have an add-on on our agenda, which was for Public Services, Steve Gilmore, and discussing solid waste. So go ahead, sir.
Hello, Commissioners. Steve Gilmore, Jeff Barcinas, I believe, will be joining as well. We were notified, so I'll backtrack a little bit. Late last year, there was an RFP that dropped from Skagit County. We ultimately, because we were in negotiations with the county on the overall host agreement, we decided not to do a one-off ask for a host fee reduction for that contract, partially because we would have thought that the process for the negotiation would have been wrapped up by now. Unfortunately, it's still ongoing. We were notified yesterday by Skagit County staff that WM is going to be recommended.
Waste management.
Yes, Waste Management, that they're going to be recommended for the contract for their disposal, transportation and disposal. That currently is 130, but basically 132,000 tons. This county is also very connected to Island County as well, which is 55,000 tons. So you're looking at, almost 190,000 tons currently at risk. The financial impact to the county would be about, $900,000 potentially in year 1 from this loss. Unfortunately, with the service issues that we had, they believe that even though we won on price by 50 cents, that the price difference isn't enough to justify keeping Republic as their provider. The challenge that we have is that, we're willing to fight to keep the business, but the ask today is we really need to move the dial on the number on the bid. And ultimately, the best way to do that, and the only way to do that, honestly, is with a host fee concession. We're asking for $1.50. That would make the difference $2 on a per ton basis, which represents for them almost a $275,000 savings for the county. So over a 10-year time period, you're looking at, about a $3 million savings versus, a $600,000 savings for the current price that we have. So long-term, if you look at a 10-year contract, potential impacts to Klickitat County for those two contracts is about $17 million of lost revenue. So that is the ask. We believe that with that concession that we actually have a very good and fighting chance to keep the business. The relationship that we have with the commissioners is really good. However, we're going to have a very strong argument for the board to go against their staff. So that is the ask. We really do desperately need that $1.50 to have a fighting chance to keep the business.
Can you, I know this is a public arena, but we do have some new commissioners here, or a new. Can you kind of briefly touch on the service issues that they had last year with Burlington Northern and whatnot?
Yeah, so in the last year and a half, there's been ongoing railroad issues with the Union Pacific, BNSF, even all the really class 1 railroads. Because of these service issues, there were times that transfer station had to shut down for, I think it was 5 days in total over the last year. Ultimately, though, they feel like that they need some resiliency, and that the service that we provided pretty much stellarly for 30 years isn't enough to let us get away with, one bad year of unfortunately bad service from our partner, the BNSF. The good news is that the BNSF has identified and has hired new people. The service has improved dramatically, and we are investing several $million in a new intermodal facility in Skagit County that would actually eliminate probably 99% of the issues that we had over the last year with service.
Have you guys already spent any of that money on that upgrade in Skagit in the intermodal?
We have done some design work and have a design ready to go. In terms of actually, we haven't gone through the planning process yet, but we've definitely gone through the design process.
Okay, I'm wondering if that's a sales point to them as well when you're thinking you're going to be shovel ready on that upgrade.
Probably, knock on wood, hopefully the planning process goes rapidly, but it would be this year that would be breaking ground, probably in the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, thank you.
With planning being the key part of that, right? I mean,
right.
You never know. Sometimes those things go very easily, sometimes not so easy.
Right. Any questions for Mr. Gilmore?
Do you have anything in writing from staff as to their reasons, rationale, why they're going to be proposing this to their commissioners?
Nothing in writing yet. Margot, the solid waste manager, did call Pinky Vargas yesterday with every indication that she didn't want Pinky to be blindsided at the SWAC meeting. They have called for a SWAC meeting tomorrow at 2:00 for them to go through the recommendation. They have a couple more steps to go, but ultimately the decision was made is that they don't believe that we have enough contingencies built into. They don't understand the intermodal, even though we've walked them through this. They don't fully understand the benefits of expanding the intermodal. So really it comes down to the service issues that we've had over the last few years or last few months, excuse me. It really comes down to the price difference wasn't significant enough of a savings to have them go with us being the lower bidder.
So in the,
What kind of concessions can you get out of Burlington Northern since you're one of their large customers and it wasn't the county's fault that there were issues? You're asking for considerations from the county. What are you asking for, the people who caused the issue?
We've been in constant engagement and conversations with the BNSF. They're ongoing, have been ongoing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they're not willing to give any concessions simply because of the fact that we still have a long-term deal with them, and they do like the deal, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, they're not going to be willing to budge much in terms of helping us with this issue.
The next question is, how is Waste Management going to move these tons? Are they going to move it by rail as well?
They're going to truck it to Argo, which is in Seattle, put it on the rail in Seattle, and send it to Arlington. So legitimately, they've had the same rail issues that we've had at Argo. And really, ultimately, the only other thing that Waste Management has brought to the table is an option to truck waste to Wenatchee as an alternative. Well, that's not really an alternative because ultimately one truck can only make one round per day. And ultimately, with that being said, during the winter, when the passes are closed, they would have no ability to go to Wenatchee. So
Is this
I
trucking
really,
their emergency option? Is that what they're trying to say? Is we're planning on putting it on a train, but if for some reason there's train issues, we're gonna truck it to Wenatchee? That's their backup plan, or is
correct.
that their, okay. That
That's
is
their
their number
backup
one
plan.
plan, that's the backup plan.
That's the backup plan. And with the expansion of the intermodal, we're going to be able to expand the number of daily containers with the same switches that we had last year. The average can count was about 17 containers on site. With the railroad expansion, we'll be able to have on average 34 empties, which is more than enough supply for them to cover 3 days. So ultimately what happens is that the switches weren't happening, which ultimately drove the issue with the lack of containers.
So it sounds to me like the issue in this situation is not price. It sounds like the issue is most definitely the relationship based on events in the past that likely would have been the exact same with Waste Management. It sounds to me like you guys have a good chance working with the commissioners, and I would hope the staff, with the investment that you're proposing to make to remedy the situation or at least alleviate it. It sounds like this is going to be more of a political issue and decision. I think it's not a good political look to be taking waste that was within the Washington waste shed and shipping it to Oregon. I don't see how that's a positive thing for those county commissioners, especially when you won on the bid.
Yeah, but solid waste disposal RFPs are not solely dependent on price. That is the one area in RFP processes where the county can go very different paths based on the scoring of the criteria and other things. So just because we are the low bidder does not guarantee that we keep the business. There's several examples where the high bidder actually was able to win business in Washington State. So price is going to be a factor here because the staff recommendation was the price wasn't different enough not to be so focused and concerned about the service issues. So ultimately, I would actually argue that the price is going to be more important as it goes to the commissioners.
And my recommendation to my seed mates is that you get all the questions you need now from Mr. Gilmore. Then before lunch, I would recommend that we go into executive session to discuss this issue. Not making a final determination, but have time to think about it over lunch and through our afternoon. And then we can go into another executive session around 3 o'clock around our board pending time, where we can think about what we've had to think about for a couple hours and come back with a decision and or give an answer to Mr. Gilmore, have more questions added around 3 o'clock for Mr. Gilmore. That would be my recommendation to my CMAs.
I have one question just to be clear. Are we talking specifically just Skagit County or both Skagit and Island?
Just the Skagit.
Okay.
Because here's the reality. Without Skagit, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to keep islands.
Okay.
With Skagit, it is going to be nearly impossible for Waste Management to take islands.
Now, question on the reason why it would be, if you lose Skagit, it's almost impossible to keep Island. Why? Because you won't have the train yard, or it's just not economically feasible to worry about Island if you don't have Skagit, which is right next to it.
We would actually have to operate Island County going to the Everett intermodal versus the Skagit intermodal. And the price difference between trucking as well as rail costs are substantially higher. So challenging for us with not having Skagit there. Island is not large enough to operate one intermodal solely for itself. It's not large enough. But with the Skagit volume, it is large enough. You're pushing 170,000 tons through one facility.
Right. So whether it's Republic or Waste Management, odds are both of these are going to be going to the same company going forward.
Correct. You lose one, you lose both.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
So you're asking the county to take a haircut on this. How much of a haircut are you willing to add to it?
None. At the end of the day, this has been a conversation for 2.5 years that we've been having with the county about the risk that the county's taking currently with the current environment and the competitive nature. Our business has to be profitable. And sorry, but with all due respect to you, Commissioner Anderson, if we don't get this concession, you're going to be losing $600,000 next year. Plain and simple.
And how much will Republic be losing?
Few million. But at the end of the day, we have a rate. We have investors that we have to make a return. And at the end of the day, this is what I've been telling you, all three of you in previous commissions, is that we are in a tough spot because this competitive environment has changed and profitability matters more than it ever has before. And if the county's willing to risk millions of dollars worth of revenue, then that's your choice to do.
And commissioners, I just want to point out as well, running the site here at Roosevelt, one of my main concerns is not only losing that revenue for the county, but potentially losing jobs, because we would have a reduction in volume where we'd have to adjust our operations a little bit. And that's not something I'm interested in doing for this county, especially as you noted, to send volume across the river to Oregon. So we just hope you'll consider this concession as a way for us to compete and maintain this volume. We have another RFP up in Spokane right now that's highly competitive as well. And we just don't want to see this all of a sudden becoming a trend where our competition's outperforming and losing the volume here, as we mentioned to you before in prior meetings.
And just as a reminder, the host fee in Klickitat County is $4.60 per ton. The host fee in Arlington is $2.25. So as you can tell, there is definitely a competitive advantage for Waste Management across the river.
Any further questions from my seatmates?
When do you need an answer? How is this going to play out in your discussions? It seems like they've already made a recommendation and a decision. How does this play out between the staff up there as well as the commissioners?
We would prefer to actually provide them information regarding the concession at tomorrow's SWAC meeting. We would love to have a representative of the county basically represent the fact that this is an important partnership between the two counties, as well as keeping jobs in Washington State, and that the county is offering to do the $1.50 based on the fact that this has been a good partnership, keeping jobs in Washington State. And ultimately then my hope would be is that the Board of County Commissioners in Klickitat would draft potentially a letter to the Skagit Board of Commissioners with the indication that you're giving this concession because of the importance of the partnership and the jobs in the community.
So are you asking one of the commissioners to clear their schedule and go up to Skagit County tomorrow?
No, they're gonna have a Zoom option, but the meeting is at 2 o'clock. If we do have a commissioner that wants to join in person, that would be fantastic. But at the end of the day, at least hopefully on Zoom would be an option.
Is that meeting at 2 o'clock? I mean, are they gonna be wanting us? I mean, are we gonna have an opportunity to talk to them at 2 o'clock, or just because it starts at 2 o'clock, our time to talk to them might not be till 2:45?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I guess I'm just kind of flabbergasted that you won the contract. They're going a different direction. You're asking for concessions and consideration when the reason and rationale for them not going with us is not price to begin with. And it sounds like there's probably more to this story about why they're recommending a change after 30 years of working together. And I don't know if that is a lack of the communication between the county and them up there. I would definitely, no matter what, try and recommend that one of the commissioners makes it to these meetings. I think that if anything, we probably need to be attending these more often with the contracts when they're going to this stage. I think there's a lot of positive things that the county can say about, like Jeff said, the jobs that they are recommending going a different direction. I would definitely like to hear the reasons and rationale from the staff. And if you have that ahead of time that we can pre-prepared to respond to bring that actual touch on something that's worth millions of dollars, and to not be there and to be there on Zoom, I think does a disservice to this county. And if anything, we should probably be in contact with those county commissioners. But with that, I will reserve the rest of the conversation probably for executive session as the chair is requesting.
And any more information, I think, about the scoring criteria seems to be where there might be more things that we need to know.
Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't provided the scoring as of yet. That may be available at tomorrow's meeting, but at this point, we don't have the scoring.
When are they gonna make their final decision on this?
So they actually have a multi-step process. So the SWAC would make a recommendation. That would go to the board, but also they actually have an administrative committee regarding solid waste that's made up of the mayors within the county. So that next recommendation would have to come from them to the board. So we're working a multi-pronged strategy to communicate with key stakeholders that this is not a good decision by the county.
When would be, I guess my question is, when would be the latest possible time that this county can come up with an answer on whether there will be a rate reduction or not? Does that have to be today so it can be posted tomorrow? And no time after that, would it ever work, or what is that?
I think from a strategy standpoint, I think it's vitally important to have some idea about where Klickitat County is headed in terms of the concession. You know, if you feel like that's the way that you guys are going to go, then absolutely we can communicate that has been expressed, that there's an interest in doing that. I think that is enough at this point. But definitely, I think Commissioner Anderson made some really good points about talking to those commissioners. I think that you folks have good relationships with Ron and others on that group. So anything that you folks can do to reach out and have conversations with them, I think would be value added from our standpoint. And anything that, you know, I think this is an all hands on deck sort of situation because of the potential loss of revenue and jobs for both of us.
Last question, this Skagit contract, if you get it, how long is this contract? Is it 10 years with 2 5-year extensions?
Likely it would be at 10 and 5. Yeah. So that's generally what they have been. Some communities are going to 7s and then 5s, which I'm not sure why, but sometimes they don't want to do a 10-year agreement now. So 7 has been, the Spokane one that Jeff mentioned actually is a 5 and 5. So every community kind of tackles these things in a little bit different way.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from my seatmates?
No.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Gilmore. If you want to pop back on at around 3 o'clock or so, I mean, it might be 3:20 or so, we don't know what our afternoon. Hard to keep on track, but hopefully then we either have answers or more questions or where we're going to go.
No, I appreciate it and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have a visitor in the room. Do you have something for us, sir? If you do, come on forward to the microphone, state your name and who you are and what you're doing, and for all those people out in Zoom land.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Ricks on behalf of the Klickitat PUD. My apologies, I don't have prepared remarks. This just came on my radar this morning. But as you know, the Klickitat PUD and Klickitat County have had a long relationship at the landfill of 25 years. Over the past 25 years, we've spent well over $100 million in capital out there to develop our projects with Landfill Gas 1, Landfill Gas 2, and then most recently, the Renewable Natural Gas Project. And in the last 5 years, we've spent over $45 million out there. And for the PUD, it's about 18 to $20 million a year in revenue, with about $7 million plus or minus net, $7 to $8 million a year in net revenue after debt. The understand you have to make decisions on behalf of the county, but tonnage out there has a double whammy for the citizens of this county. One is revenue for the county, and 2 is revenue from the gas unit that benefits every ratepayer and member of this county through the form of lower rates. So less tonnage means less fuel, means less gas and less revenue on that project. So just like you to consider that when you make your decisions this afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any questions for this gentleman? Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to everybody in Zoom land, a little unorthodox to allow PUD to come up when they're not on the schedule, but I think they should have a voice. With that, we have staff in the room. Does staff need us for anything before we go into executive before lunch? No, I don't see it. With that, if I'm not hearing anything from our staff, as opposed not to, we will go into executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.110, Pren 1, Pren D, to review negotiations on performance of publicly bid contracts when the public's knowledge regarding such considerations could cause the likelihood of cost increases. We will go into executive session for, let's go 20 minutes.
Why don't we start with 15?
We can. I'm not opposed. I just hate a million extensions. For 15 minutes, we will not be making any decisions. And when we come back out of executive, we will adjourn for lunch.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Yes, please.